Is Joe Biden really about to get impeached? Sort of, not really. Impeachment of a U.S. president is a real journey. For nearly a year now, a Republican-led investigative committee has been digging into this, holding hearings, airing suspicions, following leads.
The checks don't make themselves up that are written to this family. And what more to come out that you're hiding is so evident.
That escalates into the launch of a formal impeachment inquiry, which is where we are today.
The breaking news on Capitol Hill tonight.
U.S. Congress has voted to commence an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
Every single Republican in the House of Representatives, 221 people,
examining whether Joe Biden improperly benefited from his family's business dealings.
That step is important because it moves the House closer to an actual vote to impeach. We saw that with Donald Trump twice.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
And with Bill Clinton before that.
Just hours after his impeachment, a defiant president vows to carry on the business of the country.
But the most pivotal step an impeachment inquiry heads for is a Senate trial, where members would vote on whether to convict and actually remove Joe Biden from office. This, by the way, has never happened in American history before. So today we're at, call it stage 2. House Republicans have voted to formally authorize an impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden, an official search for evidence of wrongdoing.
It sends up a signal that, where there's smoke, there must be fire. Where there's an investigation, there must be wrongdoing.
A huge part of the impeachment case against Joe Biden revolves around whether he improperly leveraged his office to make money on the side.
Joe Biden abused his public office for his family's financial gain.
That's James Comer. He's a Republican, and he chairs the Oversight Committee that's been investigating Biden for basically all of 2023.
He lied by telling the American people that there was an absolute wall between his official government duties and his personal life. Let's be clear. There was no wall.
Biden, we should say, disputes all of this. But where does the accusation come from?
My father was not financially involved in my business.
A lot of this traces back to Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. He himself has acknowledged the Biden name can be an asset. He's worked as a lobbyist, also an advisor to private corporations, and he's made millions of dollars from many international connections, notably in China and Ukraine.
What's clear is that Hunter Biden got a lot of overseas work, and he worked for companies like Burisma that he would not otherwise have seemed terribly qualified for. There's little question that he got that employment in part because of who his father was.
For a time while Joe Biden was vice president under Barack Obama, Hunter Biden was being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe up to $1 million a year by Burisma, one of Ukraine's largest energy companies. He sat on their board of directors. And the accusation is that he and his father, in a way, worked hand in hand. You can see from this transcript what I mean. It's a former Burisma board member, Devin Archer, answering questions from a federal prosecutor. Did Hunter Biden talk about how bringing his dad either to Ukraine or using his dad as vice president would add value in the eyes of Burisma officials? Archer replies, yes. And how would that come up? I just think it's pretty obvious if you're the son of a vice president. And being the son of a vice president certainly might have paid off. Joe Biden, for example, did travel to Ukraine as vice president while his son was advising Burisma. And importantly, while Burisma itself was apparently feeling pressure from Ukrainian government investigators looking into corruption. So you have Joe Biden traveling to Ukraine in part to talk about foreign aid and government reforms in that country. And among his briefing notes for this visit, that reforms must include an overhaul of the Prosecutor General's office, including removal of Prosecutor General Shokin. That's the guy presumably investigating Burisma. So to Republicans hoping to impeach Biden, this looks pretty bad. Was he interfering in Ukrainian affairs? And if so, was he doing it to help the company paying his son $1 million a year? Republicans said what they heard from Hunter Biden's former colleague was pretty damning.
Hunter Biden was under immense pressure while they both served on the Burisma board to call Washington, D.C. immediately and try to get Shokin fired. That's the Ukrainian prosecutor.
And sure enough, within a couple of months of the visit, Ukraine's prosecutor general was fired. But all of this ignores the fact that many U.S. officials have long testified that the U.S. had many reasons to want Shokin out, branding him as the source of corruption in the country, and that the European Union shared that point of view.
In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical.
This all highlights one big challenge the Republicans have after almost a full year of investigating. There is, they say, plenty to be suspicious about. Circumstantial evidence in spades. But even some Republicans worry about the lack of a clear connection between Joe Biden and his son's business dealings. I'll give you another example.
Evidence reveals that then Vice President Joe Biden spoke, dined, and developed relationships with his family's foreign business targets.
Another central allegation is that Joe Biden spoke to, on multiple occasions, his son's business associates. That he would, for example, be put on speakerphone during Hunter's business meetings. But there is no clear evidence that Joe Biden ever talked business on those calls. Going back to the testimony of Devin Archer, the former Burisma board member, he was asked about all the times he heard Hunter Biden mention his father on a business call. Question, and during those 20 times, did Hunter Biden ever place his dad on speakerphone? The answer was yes. And before, you had said that they would talk about what when he was on speakerphone? We'll say, where are you? How's the weather? How's the fishing? How's the whatever it may be, whatever. But it was very casual conversations, not about cap tables or financials or anything like that. The Republicans say Joe Biden is lying when he says he never discussed business with his son or his associates. But they've also yet to prove that he did, or even say exactly what business they think was discussed. I'll give you one more example. An important allegation about the flow of money from outside the U.S. to people associated with Joe Biden or the Biden family.
To date, the House Oversight Committee has uncovered how the Bidens and their associates created over 20 shell companies, most of which were created when Joe Biden was vice president, and raked in over $20 million between 2014 and 2019.
It's true. According to bank records subpoenaed by the investigating committee, members of Biden's family had incomes from companies that they created. But
the important thing to remember about the $24 million sum is that a lot of that did not go to Hunter Biden or the Biden family. That number includes money that went to Biden associates. So this would be business partners and others who were involved in these ventures.
Indeed, only about a quarter of that total amount went to members of the Biden family. And importantly, not one of those payments went to Joe Biden himself.
What we haven't seen is really that President Biden had any involvement in any of this or did anybody any favors.
Republicans have mounted a very broad but very theoretical case against Joe Biden. And there are many more examples than the ones I've given. Emails, texts, business transactions that Republicans say look shady and demand scrutiny.
We know the Biden family has received millions and millions of dollars from our enemies around the world. We don't know what they did to receive the money.
So they say, let's get on with it. By formalizing the inquiry, the House Investigating Committee gains stronger subpoena powers for testimony, documents. It gives structure to their investigation and allows them, in the words of Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, to follow the facts where they lead. The American people have a right to know whether the president, through his family, traded official acts for foreign dollars. But Democrats largely frame the impeachment inquiry as a waste of time, that a year's worth of digging failed to turn up any clear evidence that Biden did anything wrong.
We will not accept this. The American people deserve better, and we also deserve better than this enormous waste of time and resources.
What Democrats will have to contend with is the perception of corruption tied to the Biden name. But unless the impeachment inquiry produces a real smoking gun,
from the White House's perspective, this is an annoying thing they have to deal with. but I don't think there's anyone in the White House who is losing sleep over the prospect of this keeping the president from completing his term.
I think that certainly the White House is very aware of the potential dangers that come with this, but I think that there is also limited evidence that this is actually going to blow back on them in any serious way.
But here's one more consideration. An inquiry draws the investigation out, very likely into election season next year. And would this be a useful line of attack for Donald Trump, himself twice impeached and facing legal troubles of his own? Absolutely. Plus, there's, without a doubt, the hope from Republicans of finding the real prize, evidence of wrongdoing, if it exists. Because, they might say, even a fishing expedition sometimes produces a fish.